I was sitting on my sofa watching a quiet documentary when my son-in-law stormed in and ripped the cable out of the TV. Enough of this trash. In this house we watch intelligent things. What hurt more wasn't his words. It was my daughter standing behind him. After 18 months living under my roof, she didn't defend me. She avoided my eyes and nodded in agreement with her husband. I said nothing. I quietly went upstairs. That night I made a decision. The next morning when they went to work, I called someone to my house, someone who would change everything. When they came back, they screamed and pounded on the door without stopping. Welcome to Family Revenge Stories. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before we continue, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from today? And after you've finished this story, please rate this video on a scale from 1 to 10. Your support truly helps me create even better stories for you. Also, please note this story includes fictional elements added for storytelling and learning purposes. Any resemblance to names or places is coincidental, and the message is meant to offer insight. The black cable hanging from the wall was the end of my patience and the beginning of my reckoning. It was October 2025, a Friday afternoon that felt like any other until it wasn't. I'm Joe Brennan, 67 years old, retired investigative journalist, and according to the deed in my filing cabinet, the sole owner of these four walls. Though you wouldn't know it from the way I'd been living. I'd become a ghost in my own home. Seen but not heard. Present but not acknowledged. A piece of furniture that people stepped around on their way to more important things. Catherine, my wife, had been gone 5 years. With her went the last person who'd made this house feel like a home. My daughter Kinsley moved in 18 months ago with her husband Jason, after they lost their apartment. I'd opened my door because that's what fathers do. We protect our children even when they're 38 and married to men we don't particularly like. That Friday afternoon, I was settled in my leather recliner, the one Catherine and I bought back in '98, watching a documentary about World War II campaigns in the Pacific. The autumn light slanted through the windows at that perfect golden angle. I was learning about the Battle of Guadalcanal when I heard the footsteps, Jason's footsteps. Heavy, aggressive, announcing his presence before he appeared. He filled the doorway at 4:30 like a storm cloud. Jason Caldwell, 40 years old, allegedly a real estate agent, though I'd never seen evidence of a single sale. He wore one of those expensive shirts that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Enough of this garbage, he announced, not asked. This house needs to raise its standards. I looked up from the screen. Excuse me, got this trash you watch all day. He gestured dismissively at the television. It's bringing down the intellectual energy of the entire house. We need to be better than this, Joe. Notice he called me Joe. Not Dad, not Mr. Brennan, just Joe, like we were buddies, like he had any right to march into my living room and make demands. It's a documentary about World War II, I said quietly. 42 years of journalism had taught me to keep my voice level when I wanted to shout. Educational programming. It's old men talking about old wars. He crossed the room in 3 strides. We're cultivating a more elevated atmosphere here, more refined. I should have seen it coming. Should have recognized the look in his eyes, that blend of contempt and entitlement I'd seen in dozens of criminals I'd exposed during my career. But this was my home, my sanctuary. Jason reached behind the television and yanked the cable out with one sharp pull. The plastic connector cracked. The screen dissolved into static, then darkness. The documentary narrator's voice, mid-sentence about Marine sacrifices, was cut off as abruptly as if I'd been the one to die. "Whoa there," he said, holding up the severed cable like a trophy. "That's better. Now maybe you can spend your time on something worthwhile instead of rotting your brain." I sat frozen, the remote still in my hand. Useless now. A piece of plastic pointing at a dead screen. "We'll discuss more appropriate entertainment options at dinner," he called over his shoulder, already walking away. Kinsley and I have some ideas about bringing this household into the 21st century. The front door opened at 6:15. Kinsley's car, her footsteps on the porch, tired, careful, like someone who'd spent 12 hours on her feet at the hospital. She was a nurse. A good one. I heard her bag hit the floor, heard her greeting to Jason in the kitchen, heard the low murmur of his voice undoubtedly spinning the cable incident to make himself the hero. She appeared in the doorway 5 minutes later, still in her scrubs. "Hey, Dad." The word felt mechanical. A social obligation rather than connection. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied, and I meant it. Despite everything. She looked at the dark television, at the severed cable on the table, then at me. I waited. Waited for her to ask what happened. Waited for her to defend me. Waited for some sign that the girl I'd raised, the one who'd stood up to bullies in 3rd grade, was still in there. "Dad," she said, disappointment heavy in her voice. "Mom would be ashamed of how you spend your time. Jason's right about the intellectual energy in this house. We all need to do better." She walked away without waiting for a response. Probably went to congratulate her husband on being brave enough to discipline the old man. I sat there as the autumn light faded to dusk. Sat there as streetlights flickered on. Sat there holding that severed cable in my hands, feeling the broken plastic edges dig into my palm. 7 o'clock came and went. The house filled with sounds of Jason and Kinsley making dinner together, laughing at something on their phones, living their life in my home, as if I was already gone. As if I was just another piece of old furniture waiting to be hauled away. I looked at the cable, black, dead, useless in my hands. Then I looked at the walls around me. The walls Catherine and I had painted. The floor we'd refinished. The windows we'd chosen. The life we'd built. That's when I felt it. A shift inside my chest. Like a lock turning. Like something that had been sleeping for 18 months finally waking up. I'd spent 4 decades as an investigative journalist. I'd exposed corrupt politicians, fraudulent corporations, con artists who thought they were smarter than everyone else. I'd built a career on patience documentation and evidence, on knowing when to watch, when to wait, and when to act. For 18 months I'd been watching and waiting. Watching Jason take over my home. Watching Kinsley drift away. Watching myself disappear one small humiliation at a time. The watching was over. I stood slowly, my knees protesting but holding. I walked to my bedroom, the one room they hadn't claimed, and pulled out a yellow legal pad from my desk drawer, the kind I'd used for every investigation I'd ever conducted. At the top of the page I wrote October 18th, 2025, the cable. Below it, I began listing everything I'd noticed, but been too tired, too sad, too passive to act on. The credit card bills with unfamiliar charges, the whispered phone calls, the way Jason's eyes calculated the value of everything in my house when he thought I wasn't looking. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, every time I closed my eyes, I saw the cable falling, heard Kinsley's voice defending him. By 11 o'clock, I stopped pretending rest was possible. I lay, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe and settle until a thought cut through the fog with brutal clarity: stop being a victim, start being a journalist. The shift felt physical, like flipping a switch that had been untouched for years. Maybe longer. Maybe since Catherine died, and grief softened me, made me passive grateful for scraps of attention from my daughter. Somewhere along the way, I'd traded self-respect for proximity. Tonight, that ended. At 11:30, voices drifted through the wall. Jason and Kinsley's bedroom shared it with mine, an arrangement that felt more invasive each day. I couldn't hear words, only the low cadence of his voice and her occasional replies. They were planning something. Probably about me. Probably how to manage the old man now that lines had been drawn. Let them talk. While they planned, I'd move. At midnight, I decided. I slipped from bed, pulled on the flannel robe Catherine gave me our last Christmas, and moved into the hallway in socked feet. The house was dark, except for the thin bar of light beneath their door. I paused, listening. Silence. Either asleep or occupied in ways I refused to imagine. I moved like I hadn't in years, slow and deliberate, rediscovering instincts forged on stakeouts and late-night investigations. Weight balanced, floorboards memorized, patience overriding urgency. Funny how the body remembers. My old study now. Jason's office sat at the end of the hall. The door wasn't locked. Why would it be in Jason's world I was harmless? A pensioner who watched television and complained quietly. Someone you could sideline while absorbing his life. His home, his authority. I turned the handle at 1 a.m. The room no longer smelled like books and polish. It stank of cologne and energy drinks. My desk was buried under fast food wrappers and scattered papers, and there, faintly glowing in sleep mode, sat his laptop. I sat in my chair and touched the trackpad. The screen lit instantly. No password, no hesitation. I almost laughed. For 42 years, I'd been an investigative journalist. I'd exposed corruption, fraud, and men who mistook power for immunity. I'd done it with discipline and evidence. And here sat Jason Caldwell, convinced I was too broken to notice anything. How had I missed it? Grief. Loneliness. Fear of losing my daughter. I'd swallowed indignities to keep family close. I'd paid with my dignity. That debt came due tonight. I began with browser history, luxury brands, restaurants I couldn't afford, then email, everything logged in, banking apps, texts synced. The arrogance was staggering. I took out my phone and photographed everything methodically. My hands were steady. This wasn't anger. It was clarity. Muscle memory. At 2 a.m, I found the credit card statements. My credit card, the one I hadn't used in months. The one meant for emergencies buried in my wallet. According to these statements, I'd been living extravagantly. $900 dinners, $3,000 shopping sprees, spa charges labeled luxury wellness, electronics I'd never seen, a weekend resort bill I couldn't pronounce. The charges spanned 6 months. Statement after statement. Each signature close to mine but wrong. Close enough for a glance. Not close enough to fool a man who'd signed his name for 67 years. $47,000. In half a year, my son-in-law had stolen $47,000, and he documented it all. I photographed every page, every forged signature, every absurd charge. 43 images in total. 43 quiet clicks sealing his fate. At 2:20, my blood iced. A door opened, footsteps, Jason heading to the bathroom. I closed everything, returned the desktop exactly as I found it, eased the laptop into sleep mode. The footsteps approached. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. The bathroom door shut. Water ran. I slipped into the hall and back to my room, moving fast but silent. Behind me, the bathroom door opened again. Jason padded past. I closed my door and sat on the bed. At 2:30, phone clenched, adrenaline finally catching up. I waited until I was certain he'd gone back to sleep. My hands shook now, but the evidence was safe. The fraud wasn't the worst thing on that laptop. I'd glimpsed emails with subject lines that turned my stomach. Those would wait. I'd risked enough. I scrolled through the photos once more. Clear, legible, damning. For decades, I'd chased truth. Tonight, the truth had come to me. I should have slept. The credit card evidence was enough. But at 2:30 in the morning, sitting on my bed with my phone, my thumb kept scrolling through the photographs. That's when I saw it. An email thread I'd captured almost by accident. Subject line, Re Joseph Brennan, long-term care options. My stomach dropped. I enlarged the image. The exchange was between Jason and someone named Susan Whitfield, senior living consultant at Sunrise Meadows Memory Care Facility. Memory care. They thought I needed memory care. The first email was dated August 15th, 3 months ago. Jason's message was brief. Hi, Susan. Thanks for taking my call yesterday. I'm looking into options for placing an elderly relative. He's becoming increasingly difficult to manage at home. What's the process for admission? Elderly relative. Difficult to manage. As if I was a problem to be solved rather than the man who owned the house he was living in. Susan's response came 3 days later, professional and sympathetic. We understand how challenging it can be when a family member shows signs of cognitive decline. Our facilities require documented evidence of such decline, as well as family consensus regarding professional care. We need medical assessments, proof of inability to maintain independent living, and either the patient's consent or legal power of attorney. I was 67 and sharper than I'd been at 40, but Jason was building a case that I was losing my mind. The September 10th email made my hands shake. Jason wrote, "The old man is stubborn but showing signs. Confusion about dates, repeating himself, occasional disorientation. My wife agrees he needs professional care. We're both concerned about his safety. What documentation would you need from us? Lies." Every word was lies. I'd never been confused or disoriented. This was pure fabrication to justify warehousing me while he sold my house, and he claimed Kinsley agreed. My daughter, who'd promised at her mother's funeral to always take care of me, had apparently signed off on having me declared incompetent. Unless he was lying about that too. Susan's response outlined the roadmap physician's assessment, documenting cognitive decline power of attorney established, while the patient was still competent enough to sign, then admission paperwork. Jason had been laying groundwork. Probably shopping for a doctor willing to diagnose decline in a healthy man, drafting power of attorney documents for me to sign without reading carefully. The final email, dated September 28th, was the most damning. Jason wrote, "Attached is the brochure and preliminary application with his information. Once Joseph is placed in your care and power of attorney transfers, the house can be sold within 90 days. Property value around $800,000. After facility costs are deducted, that should leave a substantial amount for managing his ongoing care. $800,000. My house, the one Catherine and I bought in '83 for $62,000. The house we'd painted together, where we'd raised Kinsley, where we'd built our life. To Jason, it was just an asset to liquidate, and I was just an obstacle to remove. I zoomed in on the attached PDF, an application form for Sunrise Meadows with my full name typed at the top, Joseph Robert Brennan. Date of birth, Social Security number, all filled in without my knowledge or consent. I looked at Catherine's photo on my nightstand, our 30th anniversary, a year before cancer. She was laughing, eyes bright. "Kate," I whispered, "I wish you were here. You always knew when I was being too soft, too trusting, but she was gone, and I was alone with this mess. I'd let grief and loneliness override my judgment. Let Jason into my home because I couldn't bear separation from Kinsley. I connected my phone to my laptop at 2:45, created a folder, Evidence J. Caldwell, started copying files, phone to hard drive to USB drive. Redundancy. Multiple backups. Every journalist's first lesson. By 3 o'clock, I had 3 complete copies. 47,000 in fraud. A conspiracy to declare me incompetent and institutionalized. A plan to sell my home while I lived out my years in a facility I'd never agreed to. I held the USB drive, smaller than my thumb but containing enough evidence to destroy Jason's life. Elder abuse, financial exploitation, fraud, conspiracy. The cable wasn't just about television. It was about cutting me off from everything. My autonomy, my home, my dignity. Jason had been erasing me piece by piece, preparing to make me disappear entirely. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd looked at a 67-year-old widower and seen weakness. Someone to exploit and discard. He'd missed the part where that man had spent 42 years hunting down people exactly like him. People who thought they were smarter than everyone else. People who thought they could get away with anything. I'd exposed corrupt politicians, fraudulent corporations, con artists. I'd built a career on patience, documentation, evidence. I'd never lost a story. Never let a guilty person walk free when I had proof. The watching was over. The evidence was gathered. Today, since it was technically Saturday morning, the real work would begin. I tucked the USB drive into my desk drawer, set my phone on the charger, and finally lay back down. This time, exhaustion pulled me under almost immediately. Not the fitful sleep of the past 18 months, but the deep rest of someone who knows exactly what battle they're fighting, and exactly how they're going to win. I woke at 5 in the morning without an alarm. 2 hours of sleep should have left me exhausted, but adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I lay there for maybe 30 seconds, staring at the ceiling, before the weight of what I'd discovered came rushing back. $47,000. A nursing home conspiracy. My own daughter potentially complicit. I got up. My desk was exactly where I'd left it. The USB drive sitting next to Catherine's wedding photo like a talisman. I pulled out a fresh legal pad, the old-fashioned kind, yellow paper and green lines, and uncapped a pen. Some things don't change. Even in the age of laptops and smartphones, I still thought better with pen and paper. At the top of the page, I wrote October 19th, 2025, Battle Plan. Below it, a list: locksmith, lawyer, bank, evidence organization, exit strategy. Each item represented a step toward reclaiming my life. Each one would require precision timing and the kind of strategic thinking I'd honed over 4 decades of investigative journalism. This wasn't just about gathering evidence anymore. This was about deployment, about knowing exactly when and how to use what I'd found. I stared at the list, particularly at lawyer. I needed someone I could trust absolutely. Someone who knew me well enough to believe this story without questioning my competence. Someone who wouldn't look at a 67-year-old man claiming his son-in-law was trying to institutionalize him and wonder if maybe the old guy really was losing it. There was only one name that made sense. At 5:30, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd known by heart for 40 years. Charles Norton answered on the 3rd ring, his voice rough with sleep. "This better be good. Do you know what time it is?" "Charles, it's Joe Brennan. I need your help." The irritation vanished from his voice immediately. Charles and I went back to 1985, when we'd both been younger and stupider working together to expose a city councilman taking kickbacks from construction companies. He'd been the legal expert who helped me navigate the complexities of proving corruption. I'd been the journalist who knew how to find the dirt and make it stick. We'd made a hell of a team. It was, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, physically anyway. But I need a lawyer, Charles. It's about elder abuse." I paused, let the weight of it settle. "And I'm the victim." Silence on the other end. Then, "You're serious. Completely serious. In my own home." "Jesus, Joe." I heard movement, probably him sitting up in bed. "Tell me what's happening." So I did. Kept it brief, hitting the main points. Jason and Kinsley living with me for 18 months. The cable incident yesterday. My overnight investigation. The credit card fraud, $47,000 over 6 months. The emails about putting me in memory care. The plan to sell my house. Charles listened without interrupting his breathing, the only sound that told me he was still there. When I finished, the silence stretched long enough that I thought the call might have dropped. "Quill, Charles, I'm here. I'm just..." He exhaled hard. "Joe, this is serious. Elder financial abuse, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud. If what you're telling me is accurate, if you have the documentation, Jason could face 5 to 10 years in prison." "I have the documentation. Photos of everything. Credit card statements, emails, the whole conspiracy laid out in his own words." "And your daughter Kinsley, what's her involvement?" That question hurt more than any of the others. I don't know. Jason claims she agrees I need professional care. Whether that's true or whether he's manipulating her too, I can't tell yet. Okay. Charles's voice shifted into professional mode, the tone I remembered from 30 years of working together. First thing, don't confront them. Not yet. We need to secure everything legally. Can you meet Monday morning, my office, 9 o'clock? I'll be there. Good. Between now and then, I need you to do a few things. Make copies of everything, multiple copies. Cloud storage, physical drives, whatever you can. Send me a set via encrypted email. And Joe, don't delete anything from his laptop. Don't move anything. We want to preserve the evidence chain. Already ahead of you on the copies. Cloud laptop, USB drive. I heard him smile through the phone. Still got those investigative instincts. Good. We're going to need them. After we hung up, I spent the next hour creating additional backups. Uploaded everything to my secure cloud storage. Made a second USB drive and put it in a different location. Sent Charles an encrypted file with the most damaging evidence. Every step was methodical, careful, exactly how I'd handled sensitive documents during my journalism career. By 7 o'clock, I had 6 complete copies of evidence stored in different locations. Redundancy squared. Even if Jason somehow discovered what I'd done and tried to destroy the originals, I'd still have everything I needed to bury him. I picked up the wedding photo from my desk. Catherine in her white dress, me in a rented tuxedo that didn't quite fit. 1982, a lifetime ago. She'd been 26, I'd been 39. People had said we were an odd match. Her so young and full of life, me already set in my serious journalist ways. But she'd understood me in ways no one else ever had. You always said I let people walk over me, Kate, I whispered to the photograph. You'd get so frustrated when I'd rather avoid conflict than stand up for myself. Remember when my editor tried to kill that corruption story? You told me if I backed down, you'd never forgive me. I'd published that story. It had cost me 6 months of political warfare and nearly my job, but it had exposed the truth. And Catherine had been proud. I backed down a lot after you left. Let Jason take over because fighting seemed too hard. Let Kinsley drift away because I was afraid of losing her completely. You'd be disappointed in me. I set the photo down gently. But not anymore. Watch me fight, sweetheart. This one's for both of us. At 8 o'clock, I heard movement upstairs. Water running, footsteps. The sounds of Jason and Kinsley starting their Saturday morning, as if yesterday's cable incident had been nothing. As if they hadn't spent months plotting to rob me blind and lock me away. I sat at my desk, legal pad in front of me, evidence secured in multiple locations, lawyer-consulted strategy forming. Jason thought he was dealing with a confused old man, a non-threat, someone who could be pushed around and eventually erased. By Monday morning, he was going to learn exactly how wrong he'd been. I'd spent 42 years taking down people who thought they were untouchable. Jason Caldwell was just another name on a very long list, and I'd never failed to expose the truth yet. The sound of Jason's truck backing out of the driveway at 7:45 that Monday morning was different somehow. Sharper, more final. 5 minutes later, Kinsley's sedan followed her tires crunching over the fallen October leaves that carpeted our street. I watched from the upstairs window until both vehicles turned the corner and disappeared. Then I reached for my phone. Valdez locksmith Tony speaking. Tony, this is Joe Brennan over on Maple Drive. I need all my locks changed. Every entry point. Today. There was a brief pause on the line. Tony Valdez had been in business in our neighborhood for 30 years. He'd rekeyed my house back in 2003 when we'd lost a set of keys at the grocery store. Catherine had been with me that day, laughing about how we'd torn the car apart looking for them. How soon can you be here, Joe? 9 o'clock work for you? I'll be there. Standard deadbolts on all doors. Big high security. The best you've got. Another pause, shorter this time. Tony was a pro. He knew when not to ask questions. Got it. See you at 9. I hung up and looked at the clock. 1 hour and 15 minutes until the first lock turned. Until the first piece of my home became mine again. I spent that hour moving through the house like a ghost, cataloging everything that would soon be behind new locks. The front door where Jason had stood 2 nights ago with that black cable in his hand. The back door where he'd started parking his truck too close to mine, boxing me in. The garage door, the basement entrance. 4 points of entry. 4 places where they'd come and gone as they pleased, treating my home like it was already theirs. At 8:55, Tony's white van pulled into the driveway. I met him at the door before he could knock. "Morning, Joe." He was carrying 2 heavy toolboxes and had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Professional, efficient. "Let's start with the front door, then work our way around, whatever you think is best." He set down his equipment and pulled out a drill. "This won't take long. High-security deadbolts, thumb turn on the inside, keyed on the outside. You'll get 5 sets of keys for each lock. 5 sets. I hadn't thought about that. 5 sets meant control. 5 sets meant I could decide who got in and who stayed out. The drill bit into the old lock at 9:15. The sound cut through 18 months of silence, of tiptoeing around my own home, of pretending not to hear them in the next room, planning my future. Metal shavings fell to the doorstep like snow. Tony worked with the ease of someone who'd done this 10,000 times, his hands steady and sure. There we go. The old deadbolt came free with a metallic scrape. This one's seen better days. I held it in my palm. It was warm from the friction of removal, the brass worn smooth in places. How many times had Jason's key turned this lock? How many times had they walked through my door without knocking, without asking, treating my threshold like it was theirs? "Toss it, please." He dropped it into a bucket with a satisfying clang and reached for the new lock. This one was chrome, heavy, solid. When he installed it and handed me the first key, it felt like holding a piece of my dignity. "Try it." I slid the key into the lock. It turned smooth as butter. Click. The bolt shot home. Click. It retracted. 4 times I tested it, feeling the precision of new mechanisms, the promise of security. Back door next. We moved through the house in silence. The drill sang its metallic song at the back entrance at 9:45. Same process. Old lock out, new lock in. Tony worked with the kind of efficiency that comes from decades of experience, never wasting emotion. Garage at 10:15. Lead the way. By the time we reached the basement door at 10:45, I'd started to feel something I hadn't felt in 18 months. Not quite freedom yet. More like the possibility of freedom. Each new lock was a barrier, yes, but more than that, it was a choice. My choice. About who could enter my space and who couldn't. That's the last one. Tony wiped his hands on a rag and started gathering his tools. 4 high-security deadbolts. 20 keys, total 5 sets for each door. Keep them separated, maybe give a set to someone you trust. I thought immediately of Charles Norton. 1 set for him, 1 for my safe deposit box, 1 hidden in the house, 1 in my car, 1 on my person. "What do I owe you, Tony?" He named a figure. I pulled out my wallet and added $200 bills on top. For the discretion. Tony looked at the extra money, then at me. Something passed across his face, understanding maybe, or recognition. He'd been in this business long enough to know that not all lock changes were about lost keys. "You take care of yourself, Joe." He pocketed the cash and extended his hand. His grip was firm, solid, the handshake of a man who understood that some work was about more than just locks and keys. I walked him to the door, my door with my new lock, and watched his van pull away. Then I turned back to the empty house and tested each lock 1 more time. Front door, click. Back door, click. Garage, click. Basement. Click. 4 locks, 20 keys. And for the first time in 18 months, I smiled. By 11:30, Tony's van had disappeared down Maple Drive, and I had 4 new keys in my pocket, one for each lock he'd installed. But keeping Jason and Kinsley out physically was only half the battle. Keeping them out legally required something else, something every investigative journalist knows how to build a war room. I stood in my bedroom doorway and looked at the space with fresh eyes. For 18 months, this room had been my sanctuary. Now it was going to become something Catherine would have recognized from the old days when I'd bring home a story that needed unraveling. The desk came first. I cleared everything off lamp library books, the framed photo of Catherine and me at Niagara Falls. Everything went to the dresser. The desk surface needed to be empty, ready for organization. Then I pulled out the yellow legal pad where I'd started taking notes Friday night. The credit card statements I'd photographed. The screenshots of emails between Jason and Susan Whitfield. 43 photos total, all backed up in 6 locations. Time to make them tell a story. I'd spent 42 years at the Chicago Tribune making evidence speak. This was no different, just more personal. I started with the wall above my desk. 18 months of my life reduced to a timeline written on sticky notes. April 2024, Jason and Kinsley move in. Temporary, they'd said. June 2024, first irregular charge. $890 at a steakhouse. August 2024, Jason starts talking about how I'm wasting money on utilities. October 2024, I catch him going through my mail. He laughs it off. February 2025, the nursing home emails begin. Jason to Susan Whitfield. Looking to arrange care for an elderly relative. September 2025, Susan sends the Sunrise Meadows brochure. Application filled out with my information. My signature forged. October 18th, 2025, Jason cuts the cable. October 21st, 2025. Tony installs new locks. I take my house back. I stepped back and looked at the wall. When you saw it laid out like that, the pattern was unmistakable. This wasn't a son-in-law who'd overstayed his welcome. This was a predator who'd been circling from the start. Next came the evidence categories. 3 folders, 3 colors. I'd learned this system covering the city corruption scandal back in 2009. Red folder, financial evidence. Credit card statements showing $47,000 in fraudulent charges. Screenshots of my forged signature compared to my real one. Bank records showing my checking account balance dropping from comfortable to concerning. Blue folder, communication evidence. Every email between Jason and Susan Whitfield. The nursing home brochure. Text messages I'd photographed from Jason's phone last week. Messages to Kinsley about when the old man's out of the picture. Green folder, witness statements. Barbara Peterson next door had seen Jason carry boxes from my basement back in July. Arthur Coleman, 3 doors down, had heard Jason on the phone talking about property values. Karen Phillips across the street had noticed I'd stopped waving hello around, the same time Jason started answering my doorbell. The folders went on the desk, left to right. Beginning, middle, end. At 11:45, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 6 months. Stephen Hughes. Steve, it's Joe Brennan. Silence. Then, Joe, haven't heard from you since spring. Everything okay? Stephen Hughes and I had worked together for 20 years at the Tribune. He'd moved to the Sun-Times in 2015, but we'd stayed in touch, the kind of friendship built on shared newsroom cynicism. I need a favor. Can you track down an address for me? Oh, what kind of address? The kind someone needs when they lose their apartment and have to find something cheap. Fast. Stephen knew better than to ask too many questions. Give me 2 hours. I'll text you. Thanks, Steve. I hung up and went back to the desk. One more piece to complete the war room. The summary. In journalism, we called it the nut graph, the paragraph that explained the whole story. I opened my laptop and started typing. The 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, why. Joseph Brennan, 67, retired investigative journalist, is the sole owner of a residential property valued at approximately $800,000. In April 2024, his daughter Kinsley Brennan and son-in-law Jason Caldwell moved into the residence under pretense of temporary housing. Over 18 months, Jason Caldwell engaged in systematic financial exploitation, including credit card fraud, totaling $47,000, identity theft, and conspiracy to unlawfully commit the victim to a long-term care facility for the purpose of obtaining control of the property through fraudulent power of attorney. 3 sentences. Everything that mattered. By 2 o'clock, the war room was complete. Timeline on the wall. Evidence in folders. Summary report printed. I stood in the middle of my bedroom and felt something I hadn't felt since Friday afternoon. Control, not angry, desperate control. This was colder, more methodical. The control of a man who'd spent his career taking down people who thought they were untouchable. My phone buzzed. Text from Stephen found 3 possibilities. Oak Towers on 4th Street is closest and cheapest. Studio apartments. Month-to-month leases. I saved the address and looked at the war room one more time. Evidence collected. Timeline established. Witnesses identified. The war room was ready. The evidence was sorted. Now came the part every journalist understands: proof means nothing if you don't act. Untouched facts are just paper in a folder. At 2:30, I grabbed my car keys and drove to Community First Bank on Oakwood Avenue. The same branch where Catherine and I opened our first joint account in 1983. The same place that had handled my Tribune paychecks for 42 years. The same tellers who knew us by name and sent flowers when Catherine died. Now I was here to tell them my own family had been stealing from me. The lobby was calm for a Monday afternoon. 2 tellers behind the counter. An elderly couple speaking quietly at the mortgage desk. Fluorescent lights humming overhead. I approached the reception desk, where a young woman wearing a name tag that read Jessica looked up. "I need to speak with a branch manager," I said. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" "No. It's about fraud on my account." "It's urgent." Her expression changed instantly. "Please have a seat. I'll check if Ms. Foster is available." I sat in the waiting area with the red folder resting on my lap. Through the glass walls, I could see Linda Foster inside her office phone pressed to her ear. Mid-50s dark hair, pulled back posture, sharp with decades of banking experience. She glanced up, recognized me, and nodded. 10 minutes later, Jessica led me inside. Mr. Brennan. Linda stood and shook my hand firmly. Jessica mentioned fraud. "Please sit." I placed the red folder between us. "Ms. Foster, I need to report identity theft and credit card fraud. I'm the victim." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "When did you discover the activity?" "Friday night. But it's been happening for 6 months." I opened the folder. Credit card statements with highlighted charges, signature comparisons, screenshots showing luxury purchases I never made. Linda leaned forward, scanning each page. When she reached the signature comparison, her mouth tightened. "Mr. Brennan," she said quietly, "this totals $47,000. "Yes, and you only discovered this recently." I trusted the wrong person. She looked at me, and I recognized that look the moment when a professional realizes this isn't a minor issue. Who did this? My son-in-law. He intercepted my mail, forged my signature, and used my credit card without permission. She exhaled slowly and reached for her phone. "This qualifies as elder financial abuse. It's a serious crime." "I know. I covered financial crimes for the Chicago Tribune." Something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe respect. She dialed an internal number. "This is Linda Foster, Oakwood branch. I need fraud services for identity theft and unauthorized use. Amount approximately $47,000 over 6 months." She listened. "Yes, I'll hold." While waiting, she pulled up my account history. I watched her scroll through transaction after transaction. steakhouses I'd never visited, boutiques I'd never entered, a luxury hotel stay while I'd been home watching documentaries. "Yes, I'm here," she said into the phone. "Account number." She read it aloud. "Freeze all cards immediately. Initiate disputes on all flagged charges. The customer is present with documentation." "Understood." She ended the call and faced me. "Your card is frozen as of now. No purchases can be made. We're also placing enhanced fraud protection on your account. Any transaction over $50 will require voice verification directly from you." "Good. I'll also give you documentation for law enforcement and legal counsel." She glanced at the folder. "Do you have an attorney?" "Charles Norton." Her lips curved slightly. "Charlie Norton, I know him." "You're in good hands." She spent the next 20 minutes generating reports, completing affidavits, and creating a formal trail. Each time I signed my name, my real signature, I felt a measure of control return. "Mr. Brennan," she said carefully, "does your daughter know what her husband has been doing?" The question hit harder than any number on those statements. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going to find out." She organized the paperwork and handed me a final folder. "This confirms the fraud report, case number, disputed amount, date filed. Keep copies." "I always do." She smiled faintly. "Journalist habit." "Something like that." She walked me to the door. "I'm sorry this happened. No one should have to defend themselves from family." "No," I agreed, "they shouldn't." I left the bank at 4 o'clock, with the fraud confirmation in hand and $47,000 officially frozen. The October sun slanted low across the parking lot, shadows stretching long. In less than 2 hours, Jason and Kinsley would come home. They'd pull into the driveway like every Monday. Jason would reach for his key, and it wouldn't work. I drove home with the fraud report on the passenger seat, ready for what came next. The house was quiet when I walked through the front door at 4:30. The new lock turned smoothly under my key now not theirs. I set the bank's fraud confirmation letter on the kitchen counter and looked at the clock on the microwave. Jason and Kinsley usually got home between 6 and 6:30. That gave me 2 hours. I climbed the stairs to the bedroom they'd been using. My old home office, the one Catherine had helped me paint a soft gray back in 2012. The door was open. I stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at how they'd rearranged it. Their bed where my desk used to be. Jason's suits hanging in the closet where I'd kept my file cabinets. Kinsley's nursing scrubs draped over the chair. 18 months ago, I'd helped them carry boxes up these stairs. "Just temporary," Kinsley had said, hugging me. "We'll be out of your hair before you know it, Dad." I walked to the closet and pulled out 4 large suitcases. Blue hard-shell Samsonites. I'd bought them for Kinsley last Christmas when she'd mentioned wanting to take a vacation. She'd never used them. The irony wasn't lost on me. I started with Jason's side of the closet. Suits came off hangers and went into the first suitcase. No folding, no care. Just removal. Gray suit, navy suit. The expensive charcoal one he'd worn to some real estate conference in August, probably paid for with my stolen credit card. Shoes went next. Dress shoes, sneakers, the Italian leather loafers that cost $600, according to the statement Linda Foster had shown me. Into the suitcase. All of it. His toiletries from the bathroom. Electric razor, cologne, hair gel. The laptop charger he always left plugged in by the bed. I unplugged it and coiled it loosely, dropping it on top of the suits. The first suitcase filled fast. I zipped it closed and moved to the second one. Kinsley's side of the closet was harder. I reached for a hanger and stopped. The cream-colored cardigan she'd worn last Christmas morning. We'd made pancakes together, Jason, Catherine's recipe. Kinsley had laughed at something, and for a moment it had felt like family again. Like maybe having them here wasn't so bad after all. I folded the cardigan carefully and placed it in the suitcase. Her nursing scrubs, her sneakers, the collection of scarves she kept organized by color, her hairbrush from the dresser. Each item felt heavier than it should have. I opened her nightstand drawer to pack whatever was inside and found a photograph. 5x7 in a silver frame I'd given her when she graduated high school. Kinsley at 5 years old, gap-toothed smile, clutching the teddy bear I'd won for her at the county fair. She'd named it Mr. Buttons. Slept with it every night until she was 12. I sat down on the edge of the bed, holding the photo. I'd helped her pack for college in 2007, driven her to Northwestern with a trunk full of dreams and new bed sheets, watched her walk into the dorm with that same gap-toothed confidence, ready to become a nurse and help people. 18 years later, I was packing her belongings to put her out of my house. The weight of it settled in my chest. Not anger, something else. Something that felt like grief. I loved my daughter more than life itself. I'd have given her anything. I had given her everything. This house, my trust, 18 months of benefit of the doubt. But I couldn't let that love destroy me. Not anymore. I placed the photo face down in the suitcase and kept packing. The second suitcase filled, then the third. By the time I zipped the fourth one closed, my hands were shaking. Not from weakness, from the finality of it. Getting the suitcases downstairs was harder than I'd expected. 67-year-old legs don't handle 4 trips up and down with 50-pound loads the way they used to. But adrenaline is a hell of a drug, and I was running on more than adrenaline. I was running on 42 years of finding truth and 18 months of living with lies. I dragged each suitcase to the front door and lined them up. 4 blue Samsonites standing in a row like soldiers awaiting orders. Everything Jason and Kinsley had brought into this house packed and ready to leave it. The clock in the hallway read 5:28. I walked to the living room and sat in the armchair, the one Catherine had loved, the one that faced the front window. From here, I could see the driveway. I could see when they pulled in, when Jason tried his key and realized it didn't work, when they saw the suitcases. I thought about the war room upstairs, the timeline on the wall, the evidence in folders, the fraud report from the bank in the kitchen, Charles Norton's office tomorrow morning at 9. I thought about the black cable lying in the box of old electronics in the basement, the cable that had changed everything. And I thought about Kinsley, my daughter, the gap-toothed 5-year-old who'd believed I could do anything, the 38-year-old woman who'd stood in this living room 3 nights ago and taken her husband's side while he humiliated me. Did she know? Had she known about the credit cards? The nursing home plan? Or had Jason played her the same way he'd played me? I didn't know. But in less than an hour, I was going to find out. The house settled around me. The refrigerator hummed. The October sun slanted lower through the windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. Catherine and I had refinished together in 1998. I sat in the armchair and watched the driveway, and I waited. The wait ended at exactly 6:07. I heard Jason's truck first, that aggressive rumble he thought made him sound successful. Then Kinsley's sedan, quieter, pulling in right behind. I didn't move from the armchair. I just listened. Car doors. 2 of them. One slam, one soft close. Footsteps on the front walk. The scrape of shoes on the welcome mat Catherine had picked out at Target back in 2016. The mat that said "Home Sweet Home" in careful cursive. Then the sound I'd been waiting for. Metal on metal. A key sliding into a lock that no longer recognized it. Scraping, jiggling, a confused grunt. What the? Jason's voice muffled through the door. Key's not working. Must be stuck or something. Let me try. Kinsley's voice. Softer. Still trusting that there was a simple explanation. More scraping, more jiggling. The doorknob rattled. That's weird. Mine's not working either. I sat perfectly still in Catherine's chair. Through the front window, I could see their shadows on the porch. Jason bent over the lock. Kinsley standing behind him, her purse still on her shoulder. This doesn't make any sense. Jason's voice had changed. Sharper now. Suspicion creeping in. Joe, you in there? I didn't answer, The doorknob shook harder, metal grinding against metal. "I'm Joe if this is some kind of joke." "Maybe he's not home," Kinsley said. "Maybe there's something wrong with the lock. We should call a locksmith." "His car's in the driveway, Kins. He's home." Through the window, I watched Jason straighten up. Watched him look at Kinsley. Watched the moment when confusion started turning into something else. "Come on." His shadow moved away from the door. "Back entrance." I listened to their footsteps circle the house. Listened to them disappear around the corner. At 6:12, I heard them at the back door. The same sounds: key, lock, failure, frustration. At 6:15, the garage door. Jason's voice carried through the walls. "What the hell is going on?" At 6:18, I heard them at the basement window. The one that stuck in humid weather. The one Jason had jimmied open last summer when I'd locked myself out working in the garden. It didn't open now. Tony Valdez had been thorough. The footsteps came back around to the front. Faster this time. Heavier. Then the pounding started. "Shq." Jason's fist hit the door 3 times, hard enough to rattle the frame. "I know you're in there, open the door." I stayed seated, kept my breathing steady, kept my eyes on the window where I could see him red-faced. Now Ty loosened one hand, braced against the door frame, while the other hammered. "Jason." Kinsley's voice was worried now. Actually worried. Jason calmed down. "Maybe something's wrong. Maybe Dad's hurt, or something's wrong, all right." Another 3 pounds on the door. "That old bastard changed the locks." Silence. I watched Kinsley's shadow go still. "What?" "The locks, Kinsley. He changed the goddamn locks. That's why our keys don't work." "But why would he do that? How the hell should I know?" "Maybe he's finally lost it. Maybe we need to call someone. Have him evaluated." "Joe." More pounding. The door shook in its frame. "Open this door right now!" Across the street, I saw movement in Barbara Peterson's window. The curtain pulled aside just an inch. Barb's face pale in the evening light, watching. Good. Witnesses mattered. "You can't just lock us out." Jason was shouting now. Full volume. The kind of shouting that carried down suburban streets on quiet October evenings. "This is my house too, I live here." "Jason, please." Kinsley's voice was small, scared. Not of me, I realized. Of him. Of whatever was happening that she didn't understand yet. "Open the goddamn door." The pounding intensified. Both fists now. The kind of noise that would have the neighbors calling the police if I let it go on much longer. I looked at the clock on the mantel. 6:19. 12 minutes since they'd arrived. 12 minutes of escalation. Of Jason revealing exactly who he was when things didn't go his way. I stood up slowly. My knees protested too much time sitting, too much adrenaline wearing off. I walked past the 4 blue suitcases lined up like soldiers, past the kitchen where the fraud report still sat on the counter, into the front hallway where the pounding was loud enough to hurt my ears. Through the peephole I could see Jason, face red, veins in his neck standing out, fist raised for another round of hammering. Behind him, Kinsley, hands pressed to her mouth, eyes wide. My daughter, 38 years old, and looking like she had at 5, scared, confused, needing someone to explain what was happening. I unlocked the deadbolt, the new one, the one that had cost me $240 and Tony Valdez's discretion. Then I opened the door. I opened the door exactly 6 inches. Just enough for them to see my face, not enough to step inside. The security chain stretched tight between us, a visible boundary they had crossed and could not undo. Jason's eyes dropped to the chain, then snapped back to me. Shock flickered into confusion, then hardened into rage. "Can I help you?" My voice was calm, steady. The voice I used in interview rooms when I needed someone to talk themselves into the truth. "Help us." Jason's face flushed red. What did you do to the locks? What the hell is wrong with you? This is my house. Actually, Jason, you may want to check the deed. This is my house, my name. Mortgage paid off in 2008. You were a guest. Past tense. Dad, Kinsley's voice cracked. Dad, what's going on? Why can't we get in? I looked at my daughter through that narrow opening. Her mascara was slightly smudged, her eyes tired and frightened. She looked 38 years old and suddenly very young, because I said. I know about the credit card, $47,000 stolen from me. I know about the nursing home plan. I know everything. The words settled heavily between us. Jason shoved the door. The chain held. You're insane, he shouted. You're senile. You don't know what you're talking about. I reached behind me and picked up the credit card statement I'd printed at the bank. I held it to the gap. Forged signature. The fraud department confirmed it. Would you like to see the report? Kinsley, Jason said quickly, softening his tone. Don't listen to him. He's confused. He's old. He's connecting things that aren't real. I was a journalist for 42 years, I said. I know how to document evidence. I know how to build a case. I raised the printed emails. I have your correspondence with Sunrise Meadows, applications with my information already filled in, a timeline for selling my house once you had me committed. Kinsley's face drained of color. She turned slowly toward her husband. Dad? Her voice trembled. Is this true? Of course it's not. Jason snapped, gripping her arm. Not violently, not yet, but possessively. He's paranoid. This is exactly why we were trying to get him help. Then explain this, I said, sliding one email through the gap. It fluttered onto the porch. Kinsley picked it up. Her eyes moved across the page. Her breathing changed. Jason, she said quietly, this is your email. This is real. Kinsley, let me explain. You were going to put my father in a nursing home. Her voice rose. You were going to sell his house without telling me. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Jason turned back to me. The mask cracked completely. This is your fault, he hissed. You're stubborn. You can't live alone. You need care. We were trying to help you by stealing $47,000. That money was going to be ours anyway. When you died, when the house sold, we were just speeding things up. Silence fell. Kinsley stared at him. What did you just say? Jason froze. He knew what he'd done. The truth was out raw and irreversible. You don't understand, he said desperately. This house is worth $800,000. $800,000. And it's wasted on one old man. He lunged. The chain caught him. The door frame rattled. I stepped back but held my ground. I suggest you step away, I said calmly. Barbara Peterson across the street is watching, and assault is a crime. Jason backed off, chest heaving. His hands shook with restrained fury. He pulled out his phone. Fine. I'm calling the police, reporting elder abuse. You're not competent. Please do, I said. I have the fraud report, the forged signatures, the emails, and a meeting with my attorney tomorrow morning. Charles Norton. His finger hovered over the screen. You're bluffing. I spent 42 years calling bluffs, Jason. I don't bluff. Behind him, Kinsley had collapsed onto the porch steps, the email clutched in her hands. Her shoulders shook. Kinsley, I said gently. Did you know about the card, about the nursing home? She looked up at me through the gap eyes, red and wet. No, she whispered. I swear I didn't know. I believed her. Jason lowered the phone. You can't do this, he said. We have rights. You don't, I replied. You're not on the deed. Your belongings are packed. 4 suitcases. You can collect them now. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, I said. But you should have thought about that earlier. Jason stared at me, hatred naked in his eyes. This isn't over. Yes, I said softly, it is. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, heard it lock, and through the wood and steel I heard my daughter begin to cry. Red and blue lights washed across the front of my house at 6:45. 2 police cruisers pulling up to the curb with that deliberate slowness that says we're here, everyone pay attention. I watched through the living room window as the lights painted the October evening in strobing colors. Across the street, Barbara Peterson's front door opened. 2 houses down, Karen Phillips stepped onto her porch. Arthur Coleman appeared at his mailbox, not bothering to pretend he wasn't staring. The cavalry Jason had called. Or maybe the witnesses I needed. 2 officers emerged from the cruisers. The first was mid-40s, solid build, the kind of presence that came from 20 years on the job. His nameplate read, Reynolds. The second was younger, early 30s, maybe following Reynolds's lead. Davis. Jason met them halfway up the walk, his voice carrying in the evening quiet. Officers, thank God you're here. He pointed at the house. At me, still visible through the window. My father-in-law, he's having some kind of episode. He's locked us out of the house. Our own home. He's acting completely erratic. We're worried for his safety. He might be having a stroke or, I don't know. Maybe dementia. Finally. Behind him, Kinsley stood on the sidewalk, arms wrapped around herself. Her face was blotchy from crying. When she spoke, her voice shook. He's not usually like this. Dad's always been so normal. I don't understand what's happening anymore. Officer Reynolds held up one hand. Everyone just calm down. Let's take this one step at a time. He looked at Jason, then at Kinsley, then at the house. Sir, you're saying this is your father-in-law's residence. Yes, but we've been living here for 18 months. We're family. We have rights. And is he the homeowner, legal owner? Jason hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Well, yes, technically, but... then let's start there. Reynolds walked up to the front door, knocked. Professional. Firm. Sir, police. Can you come to the door, please? I was already there, standing behind the door I'd closed 15 minutes ago. I opened it, the same 6 inches chain still engaged. Officer Reynolds. Yes, sir. Are you the homeowner? I am. Joseph Brennan, sole owner. Paid off the mortgage in 2008. Reynolds nodded slowly. His eyes took in the chain, the 6-inch gap, my calm demeanor. Mr. Brennan, your son-in-law called us. He says you've locked them out. He's concerned about your mental state. Officer, I'm a retired investigative journalist. I worked for the Chicago Tribune for 42 years. My mental state is fine. What's not fine is the $47,000 they stole from me. I paused. Could I show you something inside just you? Reynolds glanced back at Jason and Kinsley, then at his partner. Mr. Caldwell, Mrs. Brennan, please wait here with Officer Davis. I'm going inside to speak with Mr. Brennan. But you can't just... Jason started. Sir, this is his property. If he invites me in, I'm going in. Please wait here. I unhooked the chain and opened the door. Reynolds stepped through. I closed it behind him, leaving Jason's protests muffled on the other side. In the living room, I'd already set up everything on the coffee table. Like a journalist presenting a story. Like a man who'd spent 4 decades building cases. Officer, this is the property deed. My name only. This is my paid-off mortgage statement from 2008. I laid them out. These are credit card statements showing $47,000 in fraudulent charges over the past 6 months. These are signature comparisons, mine versus the forgeries. These are emails between my son-in-law and a nursing home consultant planning to have me committed so they could sell my house. Reynolds pulled out a small flashlight and examined each document. Took his time. 5 full minutes of careful review. Finally, he looked up. Mr. Brennan, what you're describing is elder financial abuse. identity theft, potentially conspiracy to commit fraud. You have every right to refuse them entry to your home. In fact, given this evidence, I'd advise it. I just want my house back, officer, and I want them held accountable. I'll need to file a report. You should contact an attorney. He paused, noticing Charles Norton's business card on the table. I see you already have. That's good. That's very good. He made notes in a small pad, photographed several of the documents with his phone camera. When he was satisfied, he stood. Mr. Brennan, you're the victim here, not them. Don't let anyone tell you different. We walked back to the front door together. When Reynolds opened it and stepped out, Officer Davis was standing with Jason and Kinsley exactly where they'd been left, neighbors still watching from porches and doorways, the blue and red lights still painting everything in alternating colors. Reynolds walked down the porch steps and faced them. Mr. Caldwell, Mrs. Brennan, I've reviewed the situation. This property belongs to Joseph Brennan. He has provided documentation of financial crimes committed against him. You are not legal residents of this property. You need to leave. Now. Jason's face went red. This is absolutely insane. We live here. That old man is making things up. He's confused. Sir, I've seen the documents, bank statements, forged signatures, email correspondence about nursing home placement without his knowledge or consent. If you don't leave this property voluntarily in the next 5 minutes, I will arrest you for unlawful trespass and potentially for the crimes Mr. Brennan has documented. You can't be serious. I'm very serious, Mr. Caldwell. Officer Davis cleared his throat. Officers, there are 4 suitcases by the front door. Looks like Mr. Brennan has already packed their belongings. Reynolds glanced at me. I nodded. But then I suggest you collect them and leave. Now. The humiliation of it must have been excruciating. Jason Caldwell, who'd walked these streets for 18 months like he owned them now, forced to carry suitcases to his truck under the eyes of Barbara Peterson, Karen Phillips, Arthur Coleman, and half the block. He grabbed 2 suitcases. Didn't look at me, didn't look at the neighbors, just stormed to his truck with that aggressive stride that didn't quite hide the rage shaking his shoulders. Kinsley stood frozen on the sidewalk staring at the other 2 suitcases. Then she looked up at me, still standing in the doorway. Dad, 1 word. That's all she said. 1 word that contained 18 months of history and 38 years of being my daughter and the weight of realizing she'd chosen the wrong side. I didn't respond. Couldn't. The words were tangled somewhere between my heart and my throat, trapped by everything I wanted to say and everything I couldn't. She picked up the other 2 suitcases, walked to Jason's truck, loaded them in the back without looking at him either. They got in. Engine started. Jason backed out of the driveway, my driveway, for the last time. The truck rolled down Maple Drive, taillights getting smaller, turning the corner, disappearing. Officer Reynolds approached me where I still stood in the doorway. Mr. Brennan, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you protected yourself. That matters. Yeah, thank you, officer. File that report with your attorney. Prosecute if you can. People like that, they don't stop until someone makes them. He handed me a card with his report number on it. Then he and Officer Davis got back in their cruisers and drove away, taking the blue and red lights with them. The street went dark again. Normal suburban October evening dark. Slowly, the neighbors went back inside. Barb Peterson last lingering on her porch, catching my eye. She nodded once. Just once. Then she went in too. I stood in my doorway, my house, my lock, my key, and looked at the empty driveway. 7:15 on a Monday night. 18 months of invasion ended in 30 minutes. I went inside and closed the door. By 8 o'clock, the street had gone quiet again. The neighbors had retreated indoors, though I was certain phones were ringing behind drawn curtains, voices replaying what they'd just witnessed. The police cruisers were gone. The red and blue lights had faded into memory, and I was alone, truly alone for the first time in 18 months. I closed the door, my lock, my house, and leaned back against it. I stood there with my eyes closed, drawing in a slow, careful breath, the kind I hadn't been able to take since April of 2024. The silence felt different. Not the tense silence of watching my words, wondering if Jason would be in one of his moods, or if Kinsley would give me that look that said, "Let it go, Dad." This silence had weight, but it didn't crush me. It belonged to me. I walked through the house slowly. The living room first. The armchair where I'd sat earlier waiting for them to come home. The coffee table where I'd laid out evidence for Officer Reynolds less than an hour ago. Everything was still. Everything intact. The kitchen came next. Jason's coffee mug sat in the sink, the expensive ceramic one with a smug quote about success. I washed it, dried it, and put it in the cabinet. Tomorrow I'd donate it. Tonight I just needed it gone. His shoes waited by the back door. Size 11 Nikes, barely worn. I picked them up, slid them into a plastic bag, and set them aside. His jacket hung over a dining chair. Navy blue. Real estate logo stitched over the chest. I folded it and added it to the pile. Each item I cleared felt like reclaiming territory. Like planting a flag on ground that had been occupied too long. This space is mine again. At 8:30, I opened the refrigerator and really looked inside. For months, I'd eaten whatever was quickest, whatever caused the least friction. Tonight, I pulled out pasta butter garlic. Simple. The kind of meal Catherine used to make when neither of us felt like fussing. I boiled water, minced garlic, melted butter in a pan. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and familiar, and for the first time since they'd moved in, the house smelled like my cooking. I sat at the dining table instead of standing at the counter. No television, no conversation. Just the sound of my fork against the plate and the steady hum of the refrigerator. Peaceful, that was the word. But peace invites memory. I thought about Kinsley, about the way she'd looked at me on the sidewalk when she said, "Dad." One word carrying 18 months of confusion and 38 years of being my daughter. Did she know about the nursing home plan, about the credit cards? Or had she been fooled too, manipulated by a man skilled at control? The doubt crept in quietly. What if she truly didn't know? What if I'd destroyed my relationship with my daughter over something done without her consent? Then I remembered, she'd defended him every time. When he took over my mail, when he spoke to me like a child, when he made me feel like a guest in my own home. She'd told me I was overreacting, that I was sensitive, that he meant well. She had chosen him, repeatedly. At 9, I called Charles Norton. He answered quickly. "Joe, I was waiting to hear from you. The police came. Officer Reynolds reviewed everything, told them to leave. They're gone." "That's good," he said. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know yet. That's honest. Listen, you did everything right. But you need to prepare yourself. Jason won't accept this quietly. I know. Stay in your house, but be careful. Lock your doors. Call me if anything happens." "I will. We'll meet tomorrow at 9. We'll start the legal process. Restraining order, civil suit, possibly criminal charges. See you then." After I hung up, the house felt larger, quieter. The old clock Catherine bought in 1994 ticked steadily on the mantel. At 10, I turned on the news. Watched stories that had nothing to do with me. Tried not to imagine where Kinsley and Jason were sleeping. My eyes drifted to a photograph on the side table. Catherine, 45, smiling in our backyard. 2002. Healthy. Happy. Did I do the right thing? I asked the empty room. Did I choose survival over our daughter's happiness? The photo didn't answer. Memory did. Catherine in the hospital, October 2020. Frail but sharp-eyed. She'd squeezed my hand and made me promise. "Take care of Kinsley," she whispered. "I will." "But Joe," she'd said, tightening her grip. Promise you'll take care of yourself too. Don't let anyone make you small, I'd promised. 3 days later, she was gone. 5 years later, I'd finally kept both promises. At 11, I went upstairs. Brushed my teeth in a bathroom free of Jason's cologne. Slid into my bed, and pulled the covers close. The house creaked in familiar places. The October wind brushed the windows. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, judgment, and consequences. But tonight I was just tired. 3 days passed in a strange kind of limbo. On Tuesday, I met Charles at his office and signed paperwork. Restraining order petition, fraud declarations, civil suit preparation. My signature, my real signature, went on document after document, while Charles explained timelines in that calm attorney voice that made everything sound survivable. On Wednesday, I called a glazier to replace the front window, the one where the cable had hung. I told him I'd broken it while moving furniture, a small lie, but easier than explaining I needed to erase the reminder. I called Kinsley twice that day, both times voicemail. I didn't leave messages. I had no words that wouldn't sound like accusations or apologies for surviving. By Thursday morning, worry had teeth. It gnawed through breakfast, through my second cup of coffee, through the news I wasn't really watching. So I did what I'd done for 42 years. I investigated. At 9, I called Stephen Hughes. Joe was hoping you'd call. I got what you asked for. That was fast. Old habits. Papers rustled. There's a place called Oak Towers on the east side. Studios weekly rent, no questions. If someone needed somewhere cheap and immediate, that's where they'd go. Address. A pause. Joe. Are you tracking someone? My daughter, I said. And I know how that sounds. Christ. More rustling. 1247 Oak Street. Apartment 3B. Lease signed Monday night. Name on it is Jason Caldwell. Not Kinsley, just him. Joe, what's going on? Soon. And Steve, thank you. Be careful. I hung up and stared at the address on my yellow pad. My daughter was living somewhere that rented by the week. By 2, I was parked across from Oak Towers. 4 stories of faded brick, rusted fire escapes, bars on windows, graffiti on the entrance, a liquor store on one corner, check cashing on the other. This was where Kinsley slept after 12-hour nursing shifts. Because I'd thrown her out, or because Jason had stolen $47,000 and destroyed their life. The distinction mattered. I watched for an hour. A woman with 2 kids struggling with groceries, an old man smoking, a teenager who looked hollow-eyed and lost. At 3, the door opened and Jason walked out. Even from across the street, I could tell he was drunk. Middle of the afternoon, swaying, fumbling with his keys. He dropped them, laughed, picked them up, finally got into his truck. Part of me wanted to follow him, document the behavior, build another file. But this wasn't journalism anymore. This was obsession. I watched his truck pull away, weaving slightly. Then I drove the opposite direction. At 4, I stopped at Barbara Peterson's house. She answered wearing gardening gloves. Joe, you holding up? I am. I need a favor. I handed her a card with my number. If Kinsley comes by looking for me, give her this. Tell her I'm always here if she needs me. Exactly that. Barbara's expression softened. We all saw what happened Monday. The police. Everything. You did the right thing. Did I? Joe, we've lived here 30 years. We know who you are. Don't doubt yourself now. I nodded and left before I said something I couldn't take back. At 6, Charles called while I made dinner I wasn't hungry for. Restraining order hearing is next Thursday. Police officially opened the fraud investigation. Civil suit will be filed early November. That's good. One more thing. I tried reaching your daughter. She hasn't responded. She's not answering me either. How are you handling that? I'm giving her space. She needs to see who Jason really is on her own. And if she doesn't, then I accept I protected myself and told the truth. The rest is her choice. Charles was quiet. That's healthy, Joe. But it still hurts. Yes. By 10, I sat in the living room, with the TV muted decaf cooling untouched phone face up on the table like it might ring if I stared hard enough. It didn't. I thought about Kinsley in that apartment, about Jason drunk at 3 in the afternoon, about the kind of man who ruins everything and then numbs himself while his wife works herself raw. I thought about Catherine's promise. Take care of Kinsley, but also take care of yourself. Was I doing that, letting her live in Oak Towers while I worried in my paid-off house? Or was this the only thing left, letting her see the truth without me forcing it? The phone stayed silent. Outside, the October wind rattled the newly repaired window, and I waited, still waiting for my daughter to come home. Friday passed quietly, too quietly. I went to bed around midnight, exhausted from another day of waiting for phone calls that didn't come, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, that the stillness was temporary, that men like Jason Caldwell don't accept defeat, they marinate in it until it turns to rage. At 2:14 in the morning, I learned I was right. Quick note. What follows contains some fictionalized elements added for educational purposes, but the lessons I'm sharing remain meaningful. The sound of breaking glass tore through my sleep like an alarm I couldn't turn off. Not a crack, not a tap. A full-volume crash that said something heavy had just gone through something expensive. I was up before my brain fully processed what was happening. Heart slamming in my chest, phone already in my hand. 42 years of journalism had trained me to grab documentation. First, ask questions. Second, another crash. Living room window. I ran to the upstairs window that overlooked the front yard and looked down. Jason Caldwell stood in my driveway, illuminated by the streetlight, holding a baseball bat, like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His truck was parked crooked at the curb driver's door, still hanging open. Even from the second floor, I could see the way he swayed. Drunk didn't begin to cover it. This is my house. His voice carried through the October night, loud enough to wake the whole street. Slurred, furious. You stole it from me, old man. You stole everything. He swung the bat. My mailbox, the one Catherine and I had installed in 1997, exploded into splinters. I unlocked my phone and started recording. Timestamp 2:16 a.m. Jason staggered toward the flower pots on the porch. The ceramic ones we'd bought at the farmer's market last spring. The bat connected. Terracotta shards and dirt sprayed across the walkway. Then he pulled something from his jacket pocket. A spray paint can. In the streetlight's glow, I watched him shake it and approach the garage door. He painted. I couldn't make out all the words from where I stood, but I didn't need to. The letters were big enough, crude enough, that their meaning was clear even in the dark. I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? Someone is vandalizing my property. I'm at 42 Maple Drive. The suspect is Jason Caldwell. He's drunk and armed with a baseball bat. Are you in immediate danger, sir? I'm inside with all doors locked. He's outside destroying my mailbox and spray painting my garage. Officers are on their way. Stay inside, stay on the line. Across the street, Karen Phillips's bedroom light snapped on. I saw her silhouette in the window phone to her ear. Good. Multiple witnesses. Multiple calls. The more documentation, the better. Jason had moved on from the spray paint. He'd found something else in his truck, a crowbar. At 2:20, he was at my front door trying to jam the crowbar into the gap between door and frame. The new deadbolt held. Tony Valdez had done good work. I opened the upstairs window 6 inches. Cool October air rushed in. Hosen. I called down. My voice was steady, loud enough to carry, but not shouting. The police are coming. Leave now while you still can. He looked up. Found me in the window. His face was red, sweating despite the cold, twisted into something ugly. You ruined my life. He pointed the crowbar at me like a weapon. I'll ruin yours, you hear me, old man? I'll make you pay for this. Sirens. Faint, but getting closer. Jason heard them too. The fury on his face shifted to panic. He dropped the crowbar and stumbled toward his truck, but he was too drunk to run in a straight line. His foot caught on the curb. He went down hard, hands out to break the fall, and by the time he scrambled back up, red and blue lights were washing across the street. 2:26 a.m. 2 police cruisers coming in fast. Officer Reynolds and Officer Davis. Third time in a week they'd been called to my address. Jason was still trying to reach his truck when the cruiser lights hit him. He froze like an animal caught in headlights, then tried to keep moving. Made it 2 steps before Reynolds was out of the car, hand on his holster. "Jason Caldwell, stop right there. Hands where I can see them." Jason spun around, stumbled, caught himself on the hood of his truck. "He deserved it. You don't understand. He kicked us out. That old bastard took everything and... Get on the ground, now. You should be arresting him. He's the criminal, he." On the ground, Officer Davis was already moving around, the side handcuffs out. Jason saw him coming and tried to bolt. Made it 3 feet before his legs gave out, and he went down again this time, not getting back up fast enough. Davis was on him, hands behind his back, metal clicking around wrists. "You'll regret this." Jason was still yelling, face pressed against my driveway, spit flying. "You hear me, old man, you'll regret this." Reynolds approached the porch where I'd come outside, phone still in hand, video still recording. "Mr. Brennan, I'm sorry you're dealing with this." He looked past me at the broken window, the destroyed mailbox, the spray-painted garage door. "We need to photograph the damage for the report." "I have video." I held up my phone. Started recording at 2:16, got everything. Reynolds nodded slowly. "That'll help. This is vandalism, criminal trespassing, public intoxication, and disturbing the peace. Given the restraining order petition you already have filed, this is going to add significant weight to your case. He'll be held for at least 48 hours, probably longer." Behind him, Davis was hauling Jason to his feet and walking him to the cruiser. Jason's legs barely worked. His face was scratched from the fall, and his shirt was torn. He looked nothing like the confident real estate agent who'd walked into my house 18 months ago. He looked pathetic. "Mr. Brennan," Reynolds said quietly, "this is escalation. You did the right thing calling us, staying inside, documenting everything. But men like this, when they start property damage, sometimes they move to... I know. I did know. 42 years covering crime taught you the patterns. That's why I want that restraining order. They're good. We'll make sure the judge sees this video." Reynolds walked back to his cruiser. I stood on my porch and watched them drive away with Jason in the back seat, still yelling through the glass, though I couldn't make out the words anymore. The street went quiet again. Karen Phillips's light was still on across the way. I waved to let her know I was okay. She waved back and pulled her curtains closed. That's when I saw it. Half a block down, parked in the shadow between streetlights. Kinsley's sedan. Engine off, lights off. She'd been there the whole time. Watching. She hadn't gotten out to stop him. Hadn't called out to him. Hadn't approached the police to explain or defend or apologize. She just watched. I stared at the car for a long moment. Couldn't see her through the windshield, too dark, too far, but I knew she was in there. Knew she'd seen everything. The car started. Headlights came on. She pulled away, slowly turned the corner, disappeared. At 3:15, I was alone again. I walked around the front yard, assessing. The living room window would need to be replaced again. The mailbox was kindling. The flower pots were beyond repair. The garage door would need professional cleaning, maybe repainting. Quantifiable damage. Fixable damage. The other kind, the kind that came from watching your daughter sit in a car while her husband destroyed your property and got arrested for it, that kind was harder to measure. I went inside, locked the door behind me, and started making a list of what needed repair. Because that's what you do. You document. You fix what can be fixed. And you hope the rest heals with time. I spent Saturday morning cleaning up the wreckage. Glass shards swept from the walkway. Spray paint scrubbed from the garage door. It didn't all come off, but I got most of it. The mailbox replaced with a temporary one from the hardware store. By noon, the physical evidence of Jason's rampage was mostly gone. You'd have to know what to look for to see the scars, but the wounds, those were still there. Fresh. Deep. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang. Charles Norton. His voice carried the weight of bad news before he even spoke. Joe. Charlie. What is it? A pause. The kind lawyers use when they're choosing words carefully. I don't know how to tell you this. Just tell me. Your daughter posted bail for him this morning. $5,000. I sat down. Didn't realize I'd been standing until my legs stopped working and the kitchen chair was suddenly necessary. She bailed him out. Yes, after what he did last night. The vandalism, the threats, the arrest. Yes. I stared at the coffee cup in front of me. It was Catherine's favorite, the one with the faded sunflowers she'd bought at a craft fair in Wisconsin in 2006. I'd been using it every morning since she died. Couldn't explain why, just felt right. Joe, I tried calling her. Wanted to warn her about the protective order we're filing about the charges he's facing. She didn't answer. She wouldn't. I'm sorry. Don't be. I picked up the coffee cup, set it down. That's her choice. I can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. That's very mature of you. Mature. I almost laughed. Charlie, I'm 67 years old, and I just watched my daughter bail out the man who vandalized my house 12 hours ago. I don't feel mature. I feel like I'm losing her. You might be. For now. But Joe, people come back. Sometimes it takes hitting bottom. Sometimes it takes seeing things clearly. Give her time. How much time does she have before he hurts her instead of my mailbox? Charles didn't answer that. Couldn't. We both knew there was no good answer. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for 20 minutes. Just sat, staring at Catherine's coffee cup and thinking about the $5,000 Kinsley had somehow scraped together to free the man who'd gotten them kicked out of their home. $5,000. When they were living in a weekly rental at Oak Towers, when she was working 12-hour nursing shifts and he was day drinking at 3 in the afternoon. She'd chosen him. Again. At 3:30, I picked up my phone and did something I'd been avoiding since Monday night. I called my daughter. It rang 4 times. Long enough that I started composing a voicemail in my head. Then she answered. What do you want? Her voice was cold, defensive, nothing like the voice that used to call me at work just to say hi, that used to laugh at my bad jokes, that used to ask me to help her study for nursing school exams. Kinsley, I want you to be safe. I want you to leave him and come home. Home. She laughed, sharp, bitter. You kicked me out, Dad. You threw our stuff on the porch and humiliated us in front of the entire neighborhood. I kicked him out. You chose to go with him. He's my husband. He stole $47,000 from me. He planned to put me in a nursing home to sell my house. He vandalized my property at 2 in the morning drunk with a baseball bat. Kinsley, he's dangerous. He made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance. I closed my eyes, heard the script, recognized every word of it from 42 years of interviewing victims who defended their abusers. Sweetheart, this isn't about second chances. This is about a pattern of behavior. Last night he was drunk and upset. Her voice rose. You ruined his life, Dad. You took everything from him. What did you expect? I expected him not to destroy my property. I expected you to see who he really is. You don't understand him like I do." She was crying now. I could hear it even though she was trying to hide it. "He's just under pressure. The lawsuit, the money problems, all of it, you caused this. You started this. The money problems he created by forging my signature on credit cards, by stealing from me for 6 months. Silence. Then that's complicated. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Come talk to me. Just you. Without him. Let's sit down and—" "I can't." "Why not?" "Because he needs me. We're going to be fine. We just need time to figure things out. Please, Dad. Please just leave us alone." "Kinsley. I have to go." "Wait." Click. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at the screen where her name was still displayed. Kinsley. The gap-toothed 5-year-old who'd believed I could fix anything. The 38-year-old woman who'd just bailed out a man who'd threatened to ruin my life. He's just under pressure. That's complicated. You caused this. He needs me. Every sentence a red flag. Every justification a warning sign. She was protecting him, defending him, taking responsibility for his crimes and his rage and his destruction. She was protecting her abuser, and there was nothing I could do about it. I'd spent 42 years as a journalist, learning how to find truth, how to document evidence, how to build cases that exposed corruption and held people accountable. I'd taken down politicians and business executives and criminals who thought they were untouchable. But I couldn't save my own daughter from a man who was destroying her life one choice at a time, because she didn't want to be saved. She wanted to save him. I set the phone down on the kitchen table next to Catherine's coffee cup. Outside, the October afternoon was fading into evening. The street was quiet. Normal. Families coming home from Saturday activities. Karen Phillips watering her lawn. Arthur Coleman walking his dog. My life looked normal from the outside, too. House repaired. Damage cleaned up. Legal process moving forward. But inside, I was watching my daughter choose the man who'd vandalized my home over the father who'd raised her. Choose loyalty to someone who'd commit fraud over truth. Choose staying with an abuser over coming home to safety. And the worst part was understanding why. Because she loved him. Because she'd made vows. Because admitting he was dangerous meant admitting she'd been wrong about him. Because leaving felt like failure. Because she genuinely believed she could fix him, save him, make him into the man she'd thought he was when they'd married. All the reasons that keep people trapped in situations that are slowly destroying them. I understood them. I'd interviewed hundreds of people who'd said the same things, made the same choices, defended the same indefensible behavior. Understanding didn't make it hurt less. At 4 o'clock, I stood up from the kitchen table and went to the living room. Sat in Catherine's armchair. The one I'd sat in on Monday night watching Jason and Kinsley arrive home to find their keys didn't work. 4 days ago. Felt like 4 years. My phone sat silent on the coffee table. No callback from Kinsley. No apology. No, "You're right, Dad, I'll leave him." Just silence. And me sitting in an empty house knowing I'd done everything right and lost my daughter anyway. You can't force someone to see the truth. You can present evidence. You can document facts. You can offer safety and support and unconditional love. But you can't make them choose it. That's their decision. Tuesday night. 3 days since Kinsley had hung up on me. 3 days of silence that felt like 3 years. I'd just settled into Catherine's armchair with a book. Something about World War II, ironically fitting for the war I was losing with my own family, when my phone lit up at 9:07. Kinsley, mobile. My heart stopped before my hand could reach the phone. Kinsley, "Dad." Her voice was barely a whisper, shaking, terrified. "Help me, please." I was on my feet before she finished the sentence. The book hit the floor. Where are you? Stay on the line. I'm coming right now." In the background, I heard it. A voice. Male. Angry. The words were muffled, but the tone was unmistakable. Rage. The kind that doesn't listen to reason. We had a fight. About money. About you. He got so angry, Dad and I couldn't. A sound. Something heavy hitting a wall. Not a person. Please God, not a person. Just impact. Violence looking for a target. I'm in the bathroom. Her voice cracked. The door's locked, but he's trying to... Inslee. Jason's voice came through clear now, muffled by the bathroom door, but close enough that the phone caught it. "Open this door, we're not done talking." I was already moving, keys off the kitchen counter. Wallet. Phone pressed to my ear. "Sweetheart, listen to me. What's the address? I need the address." On 1247 Oak Street. Apartment 3B. "But Dad, don't. He's so angry, I don't want you to." The sound of the door shaking. Rattling in its frame. Fists pounding. I'm 3 minutes away. Keep that door locked. Do you hear me? Keep it locked." My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my car keys. Garage. I needed to get to the garage. "Dad!" Her voice broke completely. "He hurt me. Earlier tonight. Not bad, but I should have listened to you. You were right. You were right about everything." The words hit me harder than any punch could have. She'd known. Some part of her had known 3 days ago when she'd bailed him out, when she'd told me to leave them alone. She'd known, and she'd stayed anyway, because that's what abuse does. It convinces you that maybe you're wrong, maybe it'll get better. Maybe if you just try harder. I'm backing out of the garage right now. I'm calling 911 the second we hang up. Just hold on. My truck roared to life. I threw it in reverse. "I'm scared, Dad. I'm so scared." "I know, baby, I know, but I'm coming. 2 minutes, that's all." Another sound through the phone. Louder this time. The door shaking harder. Jason's voice was incoherent now, just fury and volume words blending into rage. Then the sound that made my blood run cold. Wood. Cracking. The door frame giving way under sustained assault. "Oh no, oh God, he's Dad, he's..." "Kinsley, keep the door closed, I'm almost..." A scream, short, sharp, cut off mid-breath. "No, please don't..." The line went dead. 9:09 p.m. I was already on Oak Street running every red light between my house and hers. My other hand was dialing 911. The phone rang once. Twice. 911, what's your emergency? My daughter Kinsley Brennan, she's at 1247 Oak Street, apartment 3B. Her husband is breaking into the bathroom where she's hiding. I just heard the door break. She screamed and the call cut off. "I'm 2 blocks away. Sir, I'm dispatching officers now. Do not enter the residence. Wait for..." "I'm her father. I'm not waiting." I hung up. Threw the phone on the passenger seat. I slammed on the brakes. Threw the truck into park, left it running door open, keys still in the ignition. Before I tell you how I saved my daughter that night, pause here. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do in my shoes? If this father's fight has moved you, let me know you're still here. Your words give me strength to continue. And a reminder, the following events contain fictionalized elements for educational purposes. If you'd prefer not to continue, feel free to stop here and choose content that better suits you. 12 minutes became 10. 10 became 8. I took corners too fast, ran lights I shouldn't have, and I didn't care. Every second that passed was a second my daughter was locked in a bathroom with a man breaking down the door. At 9:19, I screeched to a halt in front of 1247 Oak Street. The building loomed in the darkness, 4 stories of failing brick and flickering exterior lights. The kind of place where hope comes to get crushed under the weight of bad choices and worse circumstances. 3rd floor. Apartment 3B, I ran. The entrance had no security, no buzzer system, no locked door, just a push and you were in. The hallway smelled like decades of cigarette smoke, and something else, desperation maybe, or just mold that had been growing since the 90s. Stairs. I took them 2 at a time. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. 67 years old and climbing like I was 25 because my daughter needed me and nothing else mattered. 3rd floor hallway. Dim lights that flickered. Doors that had seen better decades. And at the far end, a woman standing outside apartment 3. Hands pressed to her mouth, eyes wide. She saw me coming and stepped forward. Mid-50s, worn bathrobe, fear written across her face. Are you her father? Yes. Thank God. Her voice shook. I heard terrible sounds, shouting, things breaking. I lent her my phone to make the call. Call 911 again. I said, already moving past her. Tell them to hurry. Apartment 3. B. The door was closed, but I could hear movement inside. Footsteps. Something being dragged or pushed. I pounded on the door with my fist. Kinsley, it's Dad, open the door. The footsteps stopped. Silence for 3 heartbeats. Then the door opened. Jason Caldwell stood in the doorway. Hair wild, eyes bloodshot, shirt half untucked. Trying to arrange his face into something calm, something normal, but failing completely. Joe. He said my name like we were neighbors who'd run into each other at the grocery store. What are you doing here? Where is she? He didn't move. Didn't step aside. Just stood there blocking the doorway with his body, one hand on the frame like he owned the space. She's fine. We had a disagreement. Couples fight. This is between me and my wife. You should leave. I looked past him into the apartment. It was a disaster. A lamp lay shattered on the floor. A chair was overturned. In the corner next to what must have been the bathroom, my daughter sat on the floor. Knees pulled up to her chest, face hidden in her arms, shoulders shaking. Kinsley, she looked up. Her face was tear-streaked, red, swollen from crying. And in her eyes, God in her eyes, I saw the kind of fear that no daughter should ever have to feel. Sweetheart, come here, come to Dad. She started to move, started to stand. Jason stepped to the side, blocking her path and mine in one movement. She's not going anywhere. This is my house. You're trespassing, Joe. You need to leave before I call the police. Something cold settled into my chest. Not anger. Colder than that. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm breaks. You have 5 seconds to step aside. Or what, old man? He smiled. Actually smiled. You gonna hit me? You're 67 years old. You really think? I pushed past him. Not a punch. Not a shove that would send him flying. Just forward momentum. The kind that says you are not stopping me without words. He grabbed my arm, tried to pull me back. For a second we were locked there in the doorway, him trying to assert control me, trying to reach my daughter. Adrenaline is a hell of a thing. It makes 67-year-old muscles remember what they used to be capable of. I broke his grip and stepped into the apartment. Don't touch me. Behind us I heard it. Sirens. Close and getting closer. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Heavy. Fast. Professional. Officer Reynolds burst into the hallway, First Officer Davis right behind him. Reynolds had his hand near his belt, ready for whatever he was about to find. Everyone stepped back. Jason's face transformed. The menace evaporated, replaced by injured innocence so fast it would have been impressive if it wasn't so disgusting. "Officers, thank God you're here." He pointed at me. "This man broke into my apartment. He attacked me. He's been harassing us for weeks. There's a restraining order. Ask her." I didn't take my eyes off Kinsley. "Ask my daughter what happened here." Reynolds looked from Jason to me to Kinsley, still sitting on the floor in the corner. He moved past both of us, crouched down to her level. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Reynolds. Are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" Kinsley's voice came out small, shaking. I called my dad. Jason and we were fighting. About money, about everything. And they got out of control. Did he hurt you?" The question hung in the air. Simple, direct, impossible to dodge. Kinsley looked at Jason, then at me, then back at Reynolds. She nodded. Once. Barely. But enough. "Yes." Reynolds stood, looked at Davis, gave one short nod. "Cuff him." "You what?" Jason's voice shot up 3 octaves. "She's lying, she's confused. She fell, she's just upset because this is a family matter. You can't—" Davis was already moving, pulling handcuffs from his belt. "Jason Caldwell, you're under arrest for domestic violence and assault. She's my wife. This is my apartment. You can't do this to me." The handcuffs clicked closed around his wrists. Reynolds stepped closer to Jason, voice low and hard. "Sir, you're also in violation of a restraining order. You're not permitted to have any contact with Joseph Brennan, and yet here you are in an altercation with him present. He came here, he broke in. This is— Save it for the judge. Get him out of here, Davis." They pulled Jason toward the door. He was still yelling, still protesting, voice echoing down the hallway as they dragged him toward the stairs. Something about his rights, about how we'd all regret this, about how Kinsley would come crawling back. The sounds faded. The apartment went quiet. I crossed the floor to where my daughter sat. 67-year-old knees protesting, but I knelt down anyway. Got to her level. Kinsley. She looked up at me. 38 years old, and looking exactly like she had at 5 when she'd fallen off her bike and scraped her knee. Scared. Hurt. Needing someone to tell her it would be okay. "Sweetheart, it's over. You're safe now." She broke. Just completely broke. The wall she'd been holding up for 3 days, maybe for months, crumbled. She fell forward into my arms and sobbed. Deep, wrenching sounds that came from somewhere primal. I held her. Let her cry. Didn't say anything because what was there to say I told you, so didn't matter. You should have listened, wouldn't help. She knew. God, she knew. Behind us, I heard more footsteps on the stairs. Heavier equipment. Voices calling out identifications. Paramedics, Reynolds said quietly. "Need to check her out, Mr. Brennan." I nodded but didn't let go. Not yet. Not until Kinsley was ready. She pulled back, finally wiping her face with shaking hands. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. You were right. About everything. And I chose him anyway. I'm so stupid. Hey." I caught her face gently in my hands, made her look at me. "You're not stupid. You're human, and you're my daughter. That's all that matters." The paramedics moved in with their equipment and their calm, professional voices. Reynolds stepped closer to me, speaking low. "Mr. Brennan, we'll need statements from both of you. But that can wait until tomorrow. Right now, let's just make sure your daughter's okay." I stood slowly, every joint protesting. Watched the paramedics check Kinsley over, asking her quiet questions, documenting whatever they found. Mrs. Cooper was still in the hallway, wringing her hands. She caught my eye and nodded. One neighbor to another. One human being saying you did right. In the distance, I could hear Jason's voice still echoing up from the street level, still yelling, still claiming this was all a mistake. But up here in apartment 3B, my daughter was safe, and that was the only thing that mattered. 4 months later, my house sounds different. Not the suffocating silence of endurance, not the noise of conflict. It echoes with laughter. Wednesday afternoon, 3 o'clock. My living room holds 12 people in borrowed chairs, sharing coffee and stories. Barbara Peterson, Arthur Coleman, Evelyn Baker, Harold Jackson, 7 others whose courage I witness every week. We call it the Wednesday Support Group. Today we're discussing early warning signs of financial abuse. The small things that seem innocent. Someone offering to help with bills. Someone getting defensive about financial statements. The signs I missed. The hardest part, Evelyn says, was admitting my own son would steal from me. You don't want to see it. Heads nod. We all understand. That's why we're here. At 4:30, the meeting ends. Barbara stops by my chair. Joe, you've turned your pain into purpose. We all do that, Barb. That's what community means. The house empties. The quiet now isn't lonely. It's peaceful. 4 months. Let me tell you what that means. October 29th. I pulled Kinsley from that apartment. Reynolds arrested Jason for domestic violence. She sat in my truck and said, "You were right about everything." She stayed in her old room that first night while I listened from downstairs, making sure she was safe. November. Therapy began. Dr. Sanders twice weekly. I attended family sessions. Learned what I already knew: victims don't stay because they're stupid. They stay because abusers convince them they're the problem. Jason tried calling. Charles Norton got a permanent restraining order, December. Jason took a plea deal. 18 months county jail. 5 years probation. Mandatory counseling. The lawyer must have explained that video evidence of vandalism audio of him breaking into a bathroom and police testimony meant he'd lose at trial. When Charles called with the news, I felt nothing. Just tired. January. Kinsley filed for divorce. January 15th, 2026, it was finalized. She came over that night, cried at my kitchen table. Not from sadness. From relief. I should have left sooner, she said. I took her hands. You're out. That's what matters. February. She found an apartment. West Side near the hospital. Safe. When she showed me pictures, she was proud and nervous. You sure you don't want to stay here longer? I asked. I need to prove I can live alone, she said. That I'm not the person I was with him. She moved out last week. We both cried good tears. Now she visits twice weekly. At 5 o'clock, my doorbell rings. Kinsley stands there holding Chinese takeout, grinning. Thought you'd be hungry after the meeting. We eat at the kitchen table. Kung Pao chicken for her. Beef with broccoli for me. The same order Catherine and I used to get. The conversation flows work stories, her continuing education class support group updates. Then she sets down her chopsticks. Dad, I'm sorry. For not believing you. For choosing him. For bailing him out after he vandalized your house. I take her hand. Kinsley, you survived. You're healing. That's everything. But I hurt you, and you called me when you needed help. When your life was in danger, you knew I'd come. That's what I'll remember. She sobs, healing tears. At 6:30, she hugs me at the door. Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I'd given up on myself. That's what fathers do, sweetheart. I watch her taillights disappear. Go back inside my quiet, peaceful house. I sit in Catherine's armchair. The new TV hangs where the old one was. I barely watch it. The photos on the mantle have changed. Catherine is still there forever, 45 and smiling. But now there's a support group Christmas photo. A recent picture of Kinsley actually smiling. Evidence of a life rebuilt. I open the side table drawer, pull out the small box. Inside, coiled carefully, is the black cable, the one Jason cut that Friday afternoon in October. I hold it, study it like an artifact. That cable was an ending and a beginning. I say to the empty room, to Catherine's photo. An ending of who I was, the man who let people take advantage, and a beginning of who I needed to become, someone who stands up, who survives. I put it back. I don't need to look at it daily, but I need to know it's there. A reminder. I've learned that dignity isn't given, it's claimed. That standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. That sometimes to save people you love, you must fight battles they can't yet see. And I've learned you're never too old to start over. At 67, I rebuilt my life, found purpose helping others, reconnected with my daughter, created community. If you're reading this, if you see yourself in my story, know this: you have more strength than you think. It's never too late, and you are not alone. The clock reads 7:15. Wednesday night. The house is quiet, but not empty. Full of memories, painful and joyful, all necessary. I pick up my book, World War II History. Still fighting those old battles, even if they're just on the page now. And I smile, because my house doesn't sound like a war zone anymore. It sounds like home. And to you listening to this family story, remember this: God doesn't give us trials without also giving us the strength to overcome them. 3 times I prayed when Kinsley chose Jason over me, when she called from that locked bathroom, and when she finally came home safe. 3 times God answered, not with the easy way, but with the right way. This family story taught me that sometimes love means letting go even when it breaks your heart. Sometimes protecting someone means becoming the villain in their story until they can see the truth. Don't be like me. Don't wait until a black cable hits your floor to realize you've lost yourself in your own home. Don't be silent when your dignity is being stolen piece by piece. My dad revenge wasn't about anger. It was about survival. Real dad revenge is teaching your children through action that they deserve better than abuse. The truest dad revenge is showing them that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Looking back, I wish I'd acted sooner. I wish I'd trusted my instincts when Jason first started helping with my mail. But regret doesn't change the past. Action changes the future. Here's my advice. If you see yourself in this story, whether you're the one being controlled or watching someone you love suffer, speak up. Document everything. Reach out. It's never too late, and you're never alone. God gave me 67 years to learn this lesson. Don't waste yours waiting for permission to save yourself. If this family story moved you, if you've experienced something similar, or if you know someone who needs to hear this, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your story matters. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Share this video with someone who might need it. Together, we're building a community where truth is told and help is given. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Your time, your attention, your willingness to listen, it means everything. Important note: the stories you'll hear on this channel may contain fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to exit and find something that better suits your needs. We respect your choice. Until next time, stand strong, speak truth, and remember, you are never alone.
나도 이따 목 마르면은 그거 할게요. 한 잔 먹을게요. 감사합니다. 떼모. 이거 바꿔야겠다 이제 100개. 쇼핑 방송? 지금 쇼핑 방송 아닌데? 안녕. 1100개로 했었는데? 잠깐만.